Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Jawas and Java podcast. First off, I want to say happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. We hope that you had a great holiday, a safe holiday, and you got all the Star Wars toys that were on your list from Santa. Speaking of Star Wars toys, if you didn't already, head over to our Instagram. We're doing a holiday Jawas and Java Mandalorian themed giveaway on our Instagram. So just so you guys can see what you'd be getting if you win this giveaway, which is awesome, is vintage collection Kenner Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, like you've seen in the finale of The Mandalorian. So this is a hot item right now. We're giving this away for free. We also have Grogu Monopoly. So this is going to be fun. Nice little holiday game to play with the kids or with your family or your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's a fun game. I have one too, so I've been playing this. And lastly, for the pin collectors out there, because I love pins, Grogu 4-pack of the Mandalorian pins. See that? All right, so this is a cool little add-in. So you get the Monopoly, you get Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, and you get a 4-pack of Grogu pins. So you can't beat that for free. All you have to do is head to our Instagram. All the details are there. You got to go onto the post. It'll say in big letters, Jawas and Java giveaway on the top of the post. And you just follow. If you are watching us right now, hopefully you already subscribed to our YouTube. And if you did subscribe, you'll get 5 extra entries on top of what you do on the Instagram. All right, guys, episode 5. This is my brother, Stefan. My name is Mike, Jawas and Java podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the making of The Mandalorian Season 2, the gallery episode that Disney Plus premiered on Christmas Day. Hopefully, everybody got a chance to watch it. If you didn't, tune in right away and then click back onto this video. But there's a lot of cool stuff and a lot of stuff to dive into. And it's not really spoilers, because if you're watching the making of The Mandalorian, hopefully you've watched the finale of The Mandalorian. So what'd you think about it, Steph?
I loved it. There was so much insight. There was so much stuff that like we kind of had a feeling of that got confirmed. All the Filoni samurai themed stuff really made me appreciate every single episode more so than I already did. I mean the Robert Rodriguez stuff, the when he was covering the Boba Fett, how much he loved him growing up and his passion for Star Wars really got me intrigued with the fact that he's heavily involved in the Book of Boba Fett. I thought that was awesome. That really got me like dove into his relationship with Star Wars and his relationship with the upcoming Book of Boba. Of course, the Lucas and Ahsoka stuff, that was amazing. I loved everything that they did there. And all the coverage, everything, the detail in them discussing Jabba's palace at the end was incredible. Them wanting to bring that back, that was one of my favorite moments. What
All
about
right,
you?
so I'm gonna start from the top because there was a lot of stuff to cover,
Sure.
and one thing being a Jawa was when David Chow was doing the graffiti,
Yeah,
and they mentioned how they wanted it to look like it was actually graffiti done by, you know, aliens and humans and stormtroopers. You had a bunch of
yeah, I
different
love
mix of
that.
everything. But one thing that really caught my eye was when he showed the bottom and he said, this is the section for the Jawas, because the Jawas can't reach at the top. So they wanted to make it really authentic. And you saw a little graffiti on the bottom, which I don't think you could see in the episode of The Mandalorian because there was so much and they did so much layering. But one thing I loved was they had a little silhouette, which I got to get that picture so we could post it up on the Instagram. But there was a
Yeah.
little outline of a Jawa, and they said that's where the Jawa would do their graffiti at the bottom. And I thought that was
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
to double down on the graffiti stuff, I loved how Favreau and Filoni and all those people were also putting some graffiti on that
Oh, it
wall.
was awesome.
There's a lot to break down in that graffiti. If
Oh,
you go back now and rewatch episode 1 and you go look at that graffiti, there's a lot to
yeah,
appreciate.
I have
But
to
even
really like
that was
freeze
sort
it
of
and
out.
check the stills because when we watched the episode, I remember us talking together saying, "Oh, there was a C-3PO type droid.
Yes,
There
yes.
was
Trooper
a
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, there was a trooper, but there was also you could see like after watching them do there were X-wings and TIE fighters, but there was also
Yeah.
a scene where they have the blue lightsaber and the red lightsaber like crossing paths. And I
Yeah.
think that was, I think there was a little silhouette of like a Vader, a Luke kind of thing going on
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Filoni was drawing the Ahsoka symbol, which was
Yup.
incredible. I loved everything, all the detail in that graffiti, because I already loved them bringing New York style graffiti into
You
the
never had
Mandalorian.
that's what they
Yeah,
mentioned. You never had graffiti in Star
exactly.
Wars.
Like them bringing that in, like, well, the entire gallery is just gonna make us appreciate things we already appreciated even more, which
Well,
which is pretty much the whole point of the whole thing.
not to mention that David Chow, the graffiti artist that worked on that wall, was an alien in the
Yes.
opening
Yeah.
scene
Yeah.
in with the fighting Gamorrean guards, and
Yeah.
that was awesome. I loved seeing like that they gave him that part and how cool he looked because I
Yeah.
remember recognizing like seeing that alien species and saying it was cool, but I didn't know who was portraying that.
Yeah, we didn't know the depths. That's what I love about the gallery. They just go into the depths of things that we already appreciate and they double down on it and just make you appreciate it even more.
And I am a huge John Leguizamo fan.
Yeah.
And you know that from when we were younger. We used to watch The Pest and Spawn, and we loved
Yeah.
John Leguizamo. So
Empire. Yeah. He
yeah,
was he
so
was
when I
a big
when I
part.
watched it the first time around, I didn't realize that was John Leguizamo. Then I saw reports when I read about the cast.
Yeah.
Then I remember telling you got to check this out. It was John Leguizamo because
He
his
put it
voice
on
was very different.
Instagram and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, his voice was different. And then they show that scene, and I
Oh,
loved seeing John
me too.
you know, doing the read off with Pedro, going
Yeah.
over what their lines and Favreau giving him that. Listen, I wanted to be a little bit like a mob boss, and then he goes in with the Don Corleone and gives him that little
Yeah.
accent. I thought that was awesome, and
Yeah.
that was a cool.
It's a very New York mafia-esque scene, that entire opening sequence of season 1. And
It's
like
like
I
an
said, they just
yeah,
double down on
very
it.
underground graffiti,
Yeah.
gritty. Old school New York. It was very cool, and to see John Leguizamo because you can't tell it's him with the one eye and the big costume.
Oh, of
You know,
course, and it doesn't sound much like him. Like you can
no,
tell he tweaks his voice a little bit. So it's not like you listen to it and you go, "Oh, there's Leguizamo." You don't know it immediately. But yeah, I loved seeing him do some voice recording.
yeah, no, that was cool. And I always wondered like the whole like why they changed the Gamorrean guards with the making them lean because last
Yeah,
time we saw them,
yeah,
it makes sense because these are fighting. These are two
yeah.
guys
I
fighting, and
love,
we don't
yeah, I
really
love
know.
that there was actually strategy there because I
Yeah.
was under the assumption that they just made them more agile. Like over the times, they just made them more agile, and
And they gave
they're
detail
looking
to everything
very
because
more. Yeah,
we
but there
saw
was
them with
actually
those
a method to that
axes.
madness.
Yeah, we saw them with those axes from Jabba's palace. They always had the axes. The action figures always came with the big axe, but they added a little bit of wiring and stuff. And in that scene when he hits down, you see the electric,
Yeah,
and they explained that they tweaked the weapon a little bit to make it a little more, savage, where it's not just an axe; it's also an electric axe,
yeah,
which I thought was really cool.
yeah.
And
I love them also showing obviously Favreau directing and
it's awesome.
his passion, and obviously Oliphant and all that stuff too. The entire coverage of each
Speaking
episode.
of Oliphant, one thing that actually shocked me about that episode was the Krayt Dragon had legs.
Yeah, that was crazy. Everything about that's another thing too. The fact that they wanted to make the Crate Dragon too big for us to even understand how big he is. Like because he was majority underground and he was just so huge that we could never get the full effect of
We
him.
would have never known he had legs, especially
No
from
way,
his
of course not.
skeleton.
Of course not. Yeah, exactly. Just going by what we saw, there's no way I thought he had legs. I didn't know how big he actually was, which they obviously touched on. That was
When
all.
when they created him, they didn't even know how big he actually was.
Yeah, right. They were going
They
as
they
they were
kept scaling
figuring
him
it
up.
out. Hmm.
So I thought that was cool because I would have never knew he had legs unless we watched the gallery episode. And
Oh,
who
no way.
knows that
Yeah.
we could get a Crate Dragon merchandise one day with legs and be like, who is this? And now we
Yeah.
have an explanation to why he has those legs, because
Speaking of
over time
merchandise,
he evolved.
yeah, speaking of merchandise too, they also touched on how Thick Fortuna's staff was an action figure exclusive.
I know.
So that wasn't even a thing on TV, which of course, like I said, is something that I just wouldn't know. My Star Wars knowledge doesn't go that deep.
Mhm.
So with the action figures, they even doubled down with that too, with that, which is really cool too, because Favreau always speaks on how he just feels like he's playing with his Star Wars toys.
Yeah. Well,
You know, like that's something that they say, and that's accurate with that
and they
one.
did that throughout the Mandalorian, where they touch on the action figures and the old school Kenner figures, with the Boba Fett, doing his dip down and it shoots out his back like
Yeah,
that. When the old school figure of Boba Fett came out, all it did was you bent it over, you clicked the button, and the rocket shot
yeah,
out. And then eventually they stopped making it with the rocket shooting out for safety reasons. But that that was really cool how they take these action figures that had little meaning and build it up. A
yeah.
staff in Bib's hand that made no sense because we never saw it.
Hmm.
It
And
gives like a lore to it, because now he grows into this king of the Jawas Palace, Bib's palace at that point,
yeah,
and he has that staff sitting there, and that's a figure that was around from way before we were born. So
yeah,
we wouldn't even have ever known about that, or if we did see the figure, we would have to speculate. Oh, did I ever see this? You might not even catch it. So
yeah.
that was a really cool tidbit.
And jumping a little bit forward to episode 2, which I'm sure we're going to cover next. That there was a lot of appreciation in that episode too, because I know a lot of people discuss that being a filler and whatnot, and I really appreciated Peyton Reed in this, especially knowing he was going to go on to do the season finale. I really loved him diving deep into that episode, them going out of their way to not make it look like a snow planet like Hoth, making it very glaciery. I love the episode 2 stuff too, because I do feel like that episode aged really well.
Oh,
And this
without a
is
doubt.
once again doubling down on how well that aged. When we watched it, we were like, "Oh, that was a filler. I really wish we got Bo, et cetera, et cetera." Another Mando.
Yeah, well, one thing I have to say, because this was one of my favorite scenes in the episode. So before we pass it and I forget, they had this scene where Filoni and Favreau were having a conversation, and Dave, I mean, I'm sorry, John is telling Dave he wants Mando to shoot the light out after he hangs John Leguizamo's character, and he says McClunky,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
something that Greedo says in the original movies,
of
and
course, yeah,
there was a lot of controversy of like what it meant and all this stuff, and that I loved that, because Dave is laughing and he's like we can't do that, like that's not, it doesn't make sense, like would Mando say that? And
yeah.
like, and then they're both like cracking up, and it's like almost like two friends just talking about Star Wars, saying like,
Yeah, like
you know,
Filoni was like, "No, we can't do that."
yeah,
That
but he was laughing about it, like that's actually
Oh, it's
hilarious, like
hilarious.
almost like I want to do it just because it's so ridiculous.
I almost wish they did it for
Yeah.
the sake of the internet going berserk
Oh,
and people hating it and people like us probably cracking up and loving it. I would have
and
loved to have seen that. It
and the
was
fact that we didn't see it and we got that little clip of them discussing maybe doing it, which I'm sure there's 100 other times that they've went through stuff and they were like, why don't we do this? And then they realize like, no, we'll get ripped apart,
yeah, yeah. Which I do love, because I love how like they have that appreciation towards the fans versus some directors being like, I don't give a shit, I'm gonna do what I want,
Yeah,
like, oh, I don't care if there's
we saw
backlash. I
that.
agree with him. Oh, of course we did. Fact. It's a fact. Like
Yeah,
it's not even us being haters. It's a fact. We've heard from Mark Hamill's mouth him saying Ryan Johnson had that energy.
of course.
It's not up for stipulation. So it is cool that they do take into account like, okay, that's a little bit too ridiculous.
And also, so I remember watching the trailer for the season, and we only got a few clips of like the beginning of the season, which makes sense. They didn't want to spoil the second
Oh yeah,
half.
it was only the first 4 episodes
Yeah,
I think they covered.
yeah. And I remember saying like, "Oh my God, that's Hoth!" Like, look at the like they're on a snow
Yeah,
planet at one point. You see the Razor Crest, and I'm like, "That's Hoth. It has to be. It's a snow planet." And they
yeah,
say in the documentary about making of the Mandalorian, about that episode, that once people see an ice planet, they directly link it with Hoth, and we have to change
mhm,
some stuff and make it a little different so that people, you know,
Which they
realized,
did.
of
Once they
course.
said that, I noticed it. Once they said it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. It is mostly ice and like glaciers and less snow and stuff like that. So once they said that, I definitely realized.
And yeah, so I cracked up at that point because I remember saying to you when I sent you the trailer and we were dissecting it, that's Hoth. It has to be this
Yeah.
snow. So,
Mhm.
so the episode with Bo-Katan and them talking about her coming from animated series to live action and
Love that.
what Dave says to her when he sees her for the first day in the outfit, and because he said in the past, one, you're Bo-Katan. One day you could be playing her live action, and they like
Mhm.
chuckled about it, like that's never going to happen because the animated series came out so long ago when there was a time that we didn't think we were getting live action anything from
Mhm.
that. You know, there wasn't even a big buzz about it back in the day. Um, so when he looks at her and says it's happening, I was like, oh, I got chills, obviously, which you get chills throughout the whole documentary when you see the behind the scenes. But I thought
Mhm.
that was unbelievable to see them.
Yeah. My personal, biased favorite thing about their coverage of episode 3 was when they dove deep into Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Vernado.
Oh
But
yeah.
like I love that they gave her that little bit of acknowledgement, like her athleticism, her ability. I love that they said, listen, when we bring a new character in, they're going to bring her in right. And I love that she got that recognition. I mean, I'm sure people who aren't wrestling fans don't care too much, but that really stuck with me. And I'm really glad that they spoke about her, they praised her. I mean, I'm a huge fan, so I would love for her character to be in even more cameos. I don't expect her to lead a show, but I would love for her to have whatever comes next from Bo. I would love for her to be there. I would love for her to be in season 3 of The Mandalorian, all that stuff. So I love that recognition for her.
Well, that's the thing too. Like us, besides Star Wars, I think our secondary love, as you could see your wrestling tattoo on your arm right there, we love wrestling. So we had so much hype and speculation when Sasha Banks was announced. We
Yeah,
talked forever about that.
yeah.
So it was really cool how much they really gave her because when you even to the point when you started that episode with well, first of all, she was in the trailer.
Oh, for
So
sure. She
that
was
was
one of those.
big.
She was probably
The highlight.
the highlight of
Yeah.
the trailer because the trailer gave away so little. The trailer gave so little away deliberately that was probably one of the bigger takeaways.
And when you start that episode, she was the thumbnail.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like she's that thumbnail
Yeah.
in the list of amazing pictures. You see Sasha Banks, Mercedes Vernado's picture right there. So it was really
Yeah.
cool that they spoke a little bit about her and showed her on set. And we know she looked like she was having the time of her life, and she loves it. So
Yeah.
that
No,
was really
yeah,
cool.
I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I know she might not be the greatest actress in the world. I really don't care. I think
She's
she's
learning.
great.
This was
Yeah,
her first role, and it was huge.
great. Yeah, I think she's great. I love everything she brings to the table, and I love her doing her own stunts and stuff like that here and there. Her in the uniform, but I loved everything Sasha Banks in the coverage of episode 3. That little 4 minute slot, 2 minute slot they talked about her.
Yeah. And then we get up to Bill Dawson's being on set laughing with George Lucas, which was a clip that we saw all over the internet right after the episode because people loved seeing that.
Yeah.
I popped huge when I saw them like joking
George
around and
holding Grogu
yeah,
was a huge picture that Favreau put up. That was
that was a
amazing.
picture he put up a long time ago, and
Yeah,
Grogu was blurry. And
yeah,
you know, and I remember seeing that picture, like it was such like a crappy picture, but it was
mhm,
so impactful because it
yeah.
was George Lucas
And
holding
like,
Grogu, so it didn't matter.
and now you see why. Like, whose
Yeah.
dad took that picture? It was
Yeah,
Favreau.
Dave. Yeah, I mean, John was probably taking the picture, and
Yeah.
just happy to be on set with
No, yeah,
George and Grogu, and coming full
yeah.
circle as a Star Wars fan. Seeing that is awesome.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I loved all that stuff. I love seeing Filoni talk about like making it, like a samurai film and all the mystique and everything. It was so good. I loved all the Ahsoka stuff, and once again appreciated it even more. I just appreciated so much how they handled the Filoni just loving this character, bringing him to life. They mentioned Ashley Eckstein, which was cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she's ever gonna play Ahsoka ever again, but at least they mentioned her and they acknowledge her. I'm sure they have a good relationship and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it would have to be another animated series.
yeah, but I mean that's such a rabbit hole to go down because I mean, what animated series, like The Bad Batch,
That's
I
what I
don't
mean,
even
or
see
something
I
that
don't even
hasn't.
see a window open
Yeah,
for that.
something that hasn't come about yet. But I don't know because we're getting a live action Ahsoka show. We're getting,
Yeah.
so
And to backtrack a little bit too to the Bo-Katan episode, I couldn't believe how they were doing all that makeup on all those people. They looked so good. Like I feel like they found this perfect balance between where and when to use CGI and whatnot.
yeah.
And I just loved how they were building all these characters from scratch. It was so good.
I,
The
I I loved seeing the scene where the creator, like the prop creator, was working on the lightsabers, on Ahsoka's lightsabers, and he says, like, in order to get them to where he wanted them to be, he had to alter them and make them a little bigger, and they just kept
right.
getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Dave Filoni was like, "No, that can't happen.
Yeah.
Like, we need Ahsoka sabers to be Ahsoka sabers, and that's what we got. They looked awesome, but that was really cool too to see that he he didn't want to leave anything, when it came to Ahsoka. A lot of people had thoughts on how Ahsoka looked. I thought she looked perfect. Obviously, some things needed to be changed because it's live action and it's not a cartoon, and she's a species who's very hard to put on screen, especially like we've seen her species before, but not in action scenes like that.
No, of course not. Want to know what I a big takeaway for me too was the two things that did not get mentioned in this gallery were Luke Skywalker in the finale and the name drop of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I really do think that it's because they didn't let these people on the sets for that stuff. Because what
Yeah.
are the odds that those are the two things that weren't mentioned once in this documentary, weren't shown, nothing, but were the two huge moments that didn't get spoiled for anybody. So that might even prove more so that during those Luke scenes and during that Grand Admiral Thrawn name drop scene, it very well could have been like a skeleton crew on set. It could have been the a very select few of people that have to be there were there for those two huge moments, because I don't find it coincidental that the gallery crew couldn't cover Luke and couldn't cover.
I was dying to see them talk about Luke Skywalker and see
Me
Mark
too.
Hamill on set. That was my most anticipated thing. Besides,
Me too. It was a small
what
price
ended up
to
being the
pay,
most impactful for me was the Rodriguez Boba Fett episode.
for sure.
But I couldn't wait for the Luke Skywalker, and that wasn't in it. And it also there's footage out there, I'm sure, because you don't not document something like that. So we could get it down the line,
Yeah.
as something. We don't
No,
know.
yeah, it is what it, like I said, it's a small price to pay. If they weren't letting the gallery crew in there for that stuff, and we got that Luke and that Thrawn moment, that shock value. I'm all on board for that. I actually appreciated the fact that, like I said, that may have confirmed that it was just a skeleton crew, just the people that physically had to be there for the taping of her saying Grand Admiral Thrawn and the Luke stuff.
Yeah. And since I mentioned it, what I've been dying to talk about was the Boba Fett episode and the breakdown on that, and that was
Mhm.
unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really
Seeing,
excited.
yeah, uh seeing Rodriguez dive into the character and really
Mhm.
care about the lore of Boba Fett, it was
Exactly.
unbelievable to me.
Yeah,
And to
him
see
him
him on, go
him
ahead.
have personal relationships with that character, I thought was really, really exciting. Like
Oh
him
yeah,
loving Boba, then Boba comes into play, and him growing up with this character, and then him being the one who's able to direct it. And that's what I love when they do. I love when they put someone in the position to control it that loves Star Wars and loves the characters. So they're not going to cut corners. That they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I always forget how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to butcher it right now on the podcast. But the actor that plays Boba Fett, him having an involvement, him bringing his culture into it. So those two guys were an amazing duo in that coverage. And like I said, earlier in the intro, I'm so thrilled that Rodriguez is really, really involved in the Book of Boba.
And what about seeing him? Like you said, that you can't say the actor's name. I probably will butcher it too. Tamara Morrison,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and seeing him, the excitement on his face when he's filming, and they cut, and he's not in the Boba role anymore, and
yeah.
he's happy as could be. You could tell he's genuinely excited to be back into that role. And then
Mhm.
I loved, obviously, the internet went crazy over Rodriguez playing the guitar with Grogu sitting there in his
Oh, of
meditation
course.
style, and he
Yeah,
was nodding his head and dancing to the guitar. But then they have also the scene of Tamara Morrison playing the guitar, like joking around on
mhm.
set, and he starts singing about Boba Fett, and you could just see that he's having the time of his life. He
Yeah.
loves
I
the
love.
role,
Yeah,
and
I'm so
he better
happy.
love the role because he's got the Book of Boba, and he's also, I'm sure, he's going to be playing other clones in upcoming series with the
Yeah,
amount of stuff that we're getting. If we see Rex again, it's going to be him. If we see Cody, it's going to be him. If they do flashbacks, whatever the situation is, if it's not his voice, it's going to be his face. So
yeah.
it's
No,
great to
I
see that
agree.
he's really invested in this role.
I agree, and I love that so much. I love when people love being involved in Star Wars, and I love when people love Star Wars. They're not just there for a big payday. They're not just there for, to get a notch under their belt. So I'm really excited for Rodriguez's involvement in Book of Boba.
One thing that also stood out to me a lot was the fact that the Death Troopers in the final episode were actors and
Yeah.
stuntmen under the armor, and then they had, they used green screen technology on their
Dark
body to.
Troopers. Dark
I'm
Troopers.
sorry, the Dark Troopers. They used green screen technology on their joints to make it look
Yeah.
very robotic, and the Dark Troopers were people. They were doing the
Yeah.
punching. That punching scene was
But we spoke
actual.
about that. We spoke about how they kind of did human stuff.
Yeah,
Like they didn't seem like your very like generic mechanical droids like a 3PO or a K2.
no.
They were very like they were moving. So to see that was awesome and not that surprising and cleared up. Like I was like, oh, like they had like a little bit of like sass and stuff like that to them. They were very, you know, they had a lot of character for droids, a lot of physical character for droids. So that was really cool that it was humans actually doing that, and it made sense to me. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that justifies what I was saying about them.
One thing that has a special place in my heart, because like if you watch episode 1 of the Jawas and Java podcast, when we talked about our first memories of Star Wars, one of my first memories ever of Star Wars was Jabba's Palace, because I probably seen all the original trilogy as a kid, but what I remember as a kid as my first memory is the scene at Jabba's Palace. So to see Jabba's Palace was
Yeah,
unbelievable to me. To see the detail that went into it and how they paid homage to the original people on set that made Jabba's Palace what it is, and how they did it. They wanted everything to be perfect for the fans, for the original creators and designers. That blew my mind. I loved seeing how much detail went into it. And obviously, we saw Matthew Wood, who played Bib Fortuna in the
Thick
Phantom Menace.
Fortuna, Thick
Thick
Fortuna.
Fortuna, like you like to call him, which is not going to stick. But
Already
but
got the t-shirts printed, so
I hope not. Uh, so b- Thick Fortuna, if you're really gonna stop me every time and make me say that.
mhm.
Michael Wood played him, the same actor that played him in the Phantom Menace in the prequels. So you got the same look of Bib. The same actor was under there, the same characteristics, except he was thick,
Yeah.
and
And
that
they
was
actually
really cool
spoke
to
about
see.
that too. It
Yeah.
reminded me and you were talking about it because I remember you said in the previous podcast when we were discussing it how like, okay, Jabba is a hut and the huts are all huge slime balls. Like, what the hell is this guy's excuse? And you hear Favreau saying like they're just symbolizing like the gluttony and all that stuff. So he understood that, yeah, I get it. Like Jabba wasn't a pig because he was eating bad. He was a big monster that was a type of alien.
Yeah, the huts were big slimy monsters,
Yeah.
you know. So, but that
That
was really cool. He became a hut.
yeah.
He transformed because
Yeah.
he was a big guy in that throne, and that throne is awesome. The addition to the throne, because obviously Jabba was massive and he took up the whole stage, and then he had the band on one side, he had his big drink, You know, he had guards all around him, which, you know, that, so he had still a few of the guards and a few of the old cast around him, Bib, but they put that throne in the middle, and that's so impactful because it's like, you know, he took over and he's like, you know what, I want a throne. I want to sit on a throne. This is my place now, which was
Yeah.
really cool. And when you watch the originals, you look at Bib as just kind of like a side guy. He gets,
Yeah, like a henchman, like
yeah.
yeah.
You don't think of him as he's the next up in line to take over Jabba's palace, but he probably
Right.
weaseled his way in there because
Yeah.
even Jabba was like, "You're an idiot. You're letting a Jedi use his mind tricks on you," and
Yeah.
and it showed how Jedi mind tricks didn't work on Jabba,
Yeah.
but they worked on Bib, and it made him look
Mm.
weaker. So it was cool, and it was cool
I
to
loved
see.
it. I love that Bib was the one
Yeah.
sitting on that
Oh,
throne. That was so
unbelievable! It
cool.
was nostalgia. It was awesome. It was a character that everybody recognized, and I loved it. And I'm gonna rewatch the gallery a bunch of times because we have a lot of time to fill until the next episodes of Mandalorian in
Yeah,
2022. So we're gonna be
got a lot.
digging for little things in these episodes to give us clues to the next what's coming up next. Especially the book of Boba. We're gonna get that in 2021 Christmas. So that's exciting. So we're gonna be talking a lot about that. And like always, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Jawas and Java podcast. Please, if you didn't already, head to our Instagram so that you can get a chance to win Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, as seen in the finale. Even though we didn't see Luke in the gallery episode, we saw Luke in the finale, and that's good enough for me. So you'll get that. You'll get the Monopoly, the Grogu Monopoly, and the pin set that we showed you. So don't forget, all the details are on the Instagram. And if you subscribed already, or if you do subscribe now to our YouTube, you get 5 extra entries. All right. So we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and we hope you guys had a great holiday. All right, Steph. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.